She fell from the ridge and would have died alone, until a lone cowboy carried her through storm and pain. In the wild heart of 1881 Colorado, fate bound two strangers by mercy and fire. Like, subscribe, and tell me, where are you watching from, partner? Let's get started. The ridge stretched endlessly under the fading sun, painting the Colorado sky in hues of copper and crimson. Clara Hayes had been riding since dawn, her horse's hooves clattering against the stone path. The sound of distant thunder rolled through the canyons, sharp and sudden, like a warning. Her horse reared in fear, throwing her into the air before she could steady herself. She fell hard, the world spinning as rocks tore at her dress and skin. When she finally stopped rolling, silence pressed against her ears. The pain in her leg was fierce and she could barely move. Her cries for help vanished into the vast, indifferent wilderness. The wind picked up, howling through the ridges like a ghostly choir. Clara tried to crawl, dragging her broken leg through the dust, but every movement sent waves of agony through her body. She thought of her father's ranch miles away, of the warm kitchen light she might never see again. The shadows stretched long, swallowing her in cold. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer, not for rescue but for peace. The desert had a cruel way of keeping secrets, and she feared she'd soon become one of them. Far off in the distance, a lone figure rode beneath the dying sun. Daniel Boone, a cowboy hardened by solitude, guided his horse along the edge of the ridge. He'd been tracking stray cattle, but something in the wind, a sound faint and broken, made him pull the reins. He dismounted, crouching low, scanning the canyon below. Then he saw her, a small shape among the rocks, unmoving except for a trembling hand. "Hold on," he muttered, tightening his rope before beginning the climb down. The descent was rough, every rock slick with the remnants of an earlier rain. Daniel's boots slipped once, sending stones tumbling into the ravine. When he finally reached her, Clara's eyes fluttered open. Her face was pale, streaked with dust and fear. "Easy now," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're hurt bad, but I ain't leaving you here." She tried to speak, her voice cracked and faint. My horse." He shook his head gently. "Gone, I'm afraid." "But you're not." Daniel worked quickly, tearing strips from his own shirt to bind her leg. Each touch made her flinch, yet she didn't cry out. "You're brave," he murmured, admiration hidden beneath his gruff tone. When he finished, he slid his arms under her, lifting her with surprising gentleness. She felt the strength in him, the steady heartbeat, the calm breath of a man who'd faced death before and lived to tell it. "You're safe now, miss," he whispered as he carried her toward his waiting horse. "I got you." The ride back to his cabin was slow and silent. The stars began to appear one by one, glimmering against the velvet sky. Clara leaned weakly against him, the rhythm of the horse lulling her between pain and sleep. Daniel kept his eyes on the horizon, scanning for wolves or worse. Each mile stretched endlessly, yet something about the weight in his arms felt right, like a duty older than words. When they finally reached the small wooden cabin by the river, Daniel dismounted carefully and carried her inside. The fire was cold, but his resolve was not. The cabin sat quiet beneath a blanket of storm clouds, the steady rhythm of rain tapping against the roof like whispered prayers. Daniel Boone worked silently beside the bed, wringing out a damp cloth to cool Clara's burning forehead. Her fever had taken hold the moment he brought her in, the combination of pain, cold, and exhaustion pushing her body to its limits. She drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes mumbling half-formed words about her family, about the fall, about the horse that never came back. Daniel sat through every hour, the storm outside raging as fiercely as the worry in his chest. When the fever finally broke, dawn had just begun to stretch its golden fingers across the valley. Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the crackle of a low fire. Her leg was bandaged neatly, splinted with carved wood and tied with clean linen. She tried to sit up, but Daniel's voice stopped her, gentle yet firm. "You move too soon, you'll break it worse. Let it rest, ma'am. You've been through hell." She blinked at him, studying his weathered face. There was something lonely about him, not the kind of loneliness that came from isolation, but from loss. Over the next few days, the silence between them softened. Daniel cooked what little he had, beans, bread, and once a rabbit he'd trapped along the riverbank. Clara insisted on helping, even if it meant sitting by the fire, mending his torn coat while her leg healed. One evening, as thunder rolled through the canyons again, she asked quietly, "You live out here all alone?" He nodded. "Ain't got much reason to go back. My folks settled west, thought they could tame this land. Ridge took my brother in a rock slide. My pa went looking for him, never came back. After that, I just stayed." Clara listened, the light from the fire flickering across her face. "That's where I fell," she said softly. "The ridge," Daniel gave a slow nod. "It's taken a lot of folks, miss, but it don't take everyone." For a long time, neither spoke. The storm howled, rain thrummed on the roof, and in that wild, fragile silence, two souls who had nothing left found the faintest glimmer of understanding. The days bled into weeks. Clara's leg grew stronger, and the fever became a memory. She learned to walk again with Daniel's help, his steady arm guiding her as she limped along the porch, testing her strength. "You'll be riding again soon enough," he said with a smile. She laughed softly, brushing wind-blown hair from her face. "You talk like you're trying to get rid of me." He looked away, hiding a grin. "Maybe I just don't like seeing folks stuck when they're meant to move on." But his voice betrayed a hint of sadness. As winter melted into spring, the valley came alive again, green shoots piercing the soil, the river swelling with meltwater from the distant peaks. One morning, Clara stood at the edge of the porch, sunlight warming her skin. She turned to find Daniel sitting nearby, whittling a piece of wood into the shape of a horse. "You never said why you helped me," she said. He shrugged. Didn't seem like there was a choice. "Some things a man just does 'cause it's right," she smiled faintly. "You saved my life." He met her gaze for the first time in days, eyes soft beneath the brim of his hat. "Maybe you saved mine too," he said quietly. "It's been a long time since I remembered what it felt like to have someone else breathe under this roof." She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we both fell, just in different ways." The words hung in the air between them, gentle but heavy with meaning. That evening, they sat together outside, watching the sky fade into gold and rose. The river shimmered in the distance, and the sound of crickets rose with the wind. For the first time, Daniel laughed, a deep, rough sound that startled even him. Clara joined in, her laughter light and real. The world seemed, for one fleeting moment, kind again. When spring came in full, Clara saddled a small brown mare Daniel had raised from a colt. Her legs still ached, but her spirit was strong. She packed her satchel and turned toward him, standing on the porch with his hat in hand. Thank you," she whispered. He looked at her for a long moment before replying, "Don't thank me, Mom. Just remember who carried you when the ridge gave way." She smiled, eyes bright with something unspoken. "I will." With a light kick, she rode toward the horizon, her hair catching the sunlight. Daniel watched her go until she became a dot against the hills. The wind moved through the grass, the same wind that had once carried her cry for help. He turned back toward the cabin, the silence now softer, like a friend. And as the river glimmered below, he whispered to the empty air, "Safe travels, Miss Hayes." That night, as stars lit the Colorado sky, Daniel sat by the fire, the carved wooden horse resting beside him. It was rough, imperfect, but made with care, just like the strange, fragile bond between them. He smiled to himself, knowing that somewhere beyond those ridges, a woman was riding free. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The ridge had taken much from him, but this time it had given something back.